Hello and welcome to another fluffy gaming video, and we're going to have a talk now about the telegraphing system in WildStar. So Rob, what can you tell us about telegraphing?
Well, telegraphing is a bit of a different way to do action combat. So we've obviously gone down the action combat route enough now for people to kind of be aware of it with Guild Wars and things like that. But the action combat in WildStar is a little bit different to the norm. What it does is when someone goes for a main attack, kind of something you'd press on your skill bar, or whether you're a clicker or a button pusher, your ability will be cast in like an AoE effect of where it's going to affect on the ground, or it'll basically show a cone or a strip of red or anything the attack is going to go through. This will give your enemy and you the ability to dodge out of the way of the telegraph. So that's basically it, really. It's a really simple way of showing dangerous areas on the ground.
In a way, it's almost sort of like a sort of literal expansion on the whole Days of WoW, move out of the red circle kind of stuff. It's that, isn't it? It's the red circle on the ground, don't stand in the fire.
It's don't stand in the fire. And you know when something's going to happen because it gives you a little bit of warning, like in big boss fights, that kind of thing. So yeah, don't stand in the shadows, for example, if things are falling from the sky and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but it's a bit more dynamic in the sense of it's really playing into the action combat side of the game, isn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It's not just don't stand in the fire. It's more also implemented in the method of the way that skill shots and things like that work, because the whole combat system in WildStar is skill shot based. There's no homing like skills or anything like that, or locked on targeted things.
Yeah, you can tab target. You can tab target, but it won't actually help you. It's just a way of highlighting where the enemies are.
Yeah, so you've actually got to aim.
Yeah, you've actually got to aim. So it's more of a skill shot, like a skill shot would be in LoL.
Yeah.
Or anything, or just a first-person shooter kind of, in Battlefield 3.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the big worry, or I guess a worry of the community or anyone looking at this game, is that perhaps, and from what we've seen in videos especially, the telegraphing system could arguably be conceived as simplifying combat to the level of just don't stand here, and it's it's a little bit too easy mode. But I mean, what do you think about that?
I was worried about it when I first saw the videos that came out, but then I realised, and it was explained, that actually these levels are these areas are really low level.
So in the first videos that came out.
Yeah, in the first videos that came out, and the developers just running around the kind of first zone, and it was basically just like in any other MMO where you're faced with your first enemies and they're absolutely pat, because
easy,
obviously, because they have to be. But what the developers have said is that is the path in. You're then taught obviously how to see the telegraphs and use them and get out of the way. After that, casting time on enemies is reduced, and they don't always do the same skill. There's a good few skills and abilities that enemies have that they try and keep it varied, and they don't try and keep doing the same thing that exactly it's going to happen, or that kind of thing. The casting time as well, between you actually seeing the telegraph and it happening at the beginning, is really, really kind of long. You could literally stand there for a few seconds and look, oh, there's a big red line on the floor, so move out of the way.
Yeah.
But as it goes on, it gets shorter and it
gets harder,
more complicated. Like there's some dungeon content now on the Resd video. If you have a look through that,
let's put a link to it in the description.
There's a 30-man, a level 30 dungeon in there with a bit of a boss fight at the end. And obviously he's just going through it solo, so he's got a cheat on and he's basically killing everything as well.
Yeah. But
he does the boss fights, and it shows you some of the telegraphing and how much more complicated it can get halfway through the game.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm not too concerned about it, because I can see that it could get very complicated, and the beginning stages of it were meant to be teaching you how to use the systems. But also, I mean, although it's it's great to see that the enemies you can see where all that kind of stuff is, and it's also very useful for your party, because what they're trying to go for is an instant way of communicating what you're doing. So, for example, if there's a healer they can cast some kind of AoE effect. Because obviously people can see that being cast in a certain area, the team can move to that area to then get a heal before the telegraph is, before the ability hits, let's just say. So there are loads of different stuff like that, and I'm not sure if they're going to add comboing in, but it opens that whole thing up to comboing, so you can, connect with other players. I know what they're doing with they've got a crowd control shield system, where they talk about that in the Res video as well, where the telegraphing helps you take down, crowd control a boss, for example, because bosses aren't immune to crowd control like they are in other MMOs. Right. What happens is people and bosses have crowd control armor, basically, where basically you can resist 3 attempts at crowd control upon you, which then that shield recharges.
Right. Over
a short amount of time. But if on the 4th one, for example, you would then be crowd controlled and you'd be stunned, or you'd lose your weapon, or whatever the crowd control was. But on the other side of that, you can use that on bosses as well. So a boss will have a crowd control kind of shield, but coordinating your crowd control in a group on the boss will be able, you'll be able to then daze or stun him at a certain time, which is useful for getting out of certain attacks, I would imagine.
Yeah. So all in all, I mean, it's a lot more complex than it initially looks, I guess, the telegraphing system.
Yes. Well, it's very simple, but it gets a lot more hectic.
It's walking that fine line, isn't it, really, between, making a system that makes the combat system, simple and intuitive, yet have depth, and just making it a complete face roll.
Yes, exactly.
So the question is, do you think that it's going to work out, or what do you think about the implementation of that system? Do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing? You, the viewer, let us know your thoughts about telegraphing in WildStar, and how you hope it pans out in the actual final game. So yeah, thanks again everyone for watching, and stay tuned for more WildStar themed discussion. It's our kind of prime focus at the moment on the Fluffy Gaming channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already, to receive updates about our future videos. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and we will see you again next time.
Goodbye.